It's not going to work if I have my palm over the screen, is it? It's not going to work at all. Hang on a second. Yeah, man. Such modern technologies. Now, I'm going to go live for 20 minutes, and in that time, I'm going to answer as many questions as I possibly can. But don't get cross if I don't answer your question. You know, we do this easy breezy. I've been doing a lot of these on Instagram, and we're doing it chilled. We're doing it in a relaxed way. So no trolling, no nonsense, no crazy business. Why do birds suddenly appear every time you are near? Asks JT. Great question. Dunno, mate. Do Wim Hof? Yes, I like Wim Hof very much. It's nice. I like what he's teaching. It's good stuff. And I would like to train with Wim Hof or one of his instructors, but every time I look on the website, it's all booked out. Hello, Richard. When are you coming to Portugal? I'm coming to Portugal the week after next week. So the week on Monday, I'll be in Portugal for a little bit. Cristal says, the angels got together, did they? Just like me, they long to be close to you, says JT. How does CPTSD relate to mobbing? How can one be less of a target? CPTSD relates to mobbing in both the mobbed and the mobber. So if you are carrying CPTSD that has created a hyper empathic, fawning, enabling codependent response, and you've been black sheep in your black sheep, just like my t-shirt, which has a scapegoat on it, then you're more likely to be the victim of mobbing and to tolerate it very poorly, because you won't know how to stand up for yourself. You won't know how to fight back. You're more likely to go into like a freeze response and to try and fawn your way out of it. In the people who are doing the mobbing, the CPTSD response would be that of a predatory personality disorder. They are scapegoating you. You may even have a psychopath or a narcissist in their midst who is encouraging them and egging them on. I myself have experienced this a few years ago in the self-defense industry. There was a lot of that going on, unfortunately. And there was, in fact, in that scenario, one or two major personalities who were doing a lot of the goading and the egging on and the training of the flying monkeys. Icy Bambies again, says Pippa. Yes, Pippa has named the freeze fawn response as Icy Bambies. Ice Bambies. Richard, tap dancing and strawberry jam, says David K. I agree. I was mobbed by my family recently after a few months of standing up for myself. It didn't go well. Is it common, Tertain says, is it, see, holding the phone up post-training is actually pitifully hard. Wait, where's it gone? There it is. It's actually easier to scroll on my phone and read the live chat feed than it is on the web browser, which is interesting. And then it disappears, but I can bring it back by touching the phone with my finger. It's actually YouTube. If anybody runs their own YouTube channel, this YouTube Live on the phone is actually much more controllable and feels much better developed than the one in the browser. Is it, what? Wait. Tertain. Is it common to have played all the roles of a dysfunctional family at different times? I don't think it's common, but I know that it happens. People do switch roles. Sorry for that. I have to touch the screen to bring it back because it slowly fades out. We were mostly neglected, then with success of any time golden childhood, then looked at as rescuers. I see. Yeah. There's probably a degree of parentification going on there, and possibly infantilization, as your not particularly emotionally mature parents switched you through whichever role was most convenient for them at that given moment in time. It's extremely damaging because it gives you a very damaged sense of self. And that is incredibly tricky to recover from. Ace Frantura says, "Are you okay? Your speech is a bit slurry. You had drinks, pills?" No, no, just did a lot today. Trained at the gym, hour and 40 minutes, pretty hard. Then went and danced, did some bachata, and I've just eaten quite a bit of food because I'm on this intermittent fasting thing, and you've got a window, and then you have to eat all your food within a certain eating window. And if I'm slurring, it will only be because knackered and full. No pills, no drinks, not tonight. Perhaps tomorrow. Are you a believer in free will or determinism? I don't know what determinism would mean in the context of free will. I've never heard it put as free will or determinism. What do you mean by that, Nancy B? Are you asking me if I think we have free will or if everything in our life is just pre-written, predetermined? No, I don't believe everything is predetermined. D says, "You have taken me out of the dark room. The psychos whom raised me, actually, you showed me which keys fit the door." That's very good. I'm glad to hear that helped. Aren't all psychopaths narcissistic? Yes, everybody who is in... Excuse me for doing that. My arms are very tired, and actually just holding my phone up is hard. That's how hard training was today. Yeah, all psychopaths are narcissistic to the extent that, you know, they're within the cluster B spectrum. There are some significant differences between antisocial personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder. But yes, you could say that all psychopaths, those having ASPD, are narcissistic. Hi Rich, says Simply One Mortality. What advice would you give if you are aware, because of your past, you may be hypervigilant to a point you might be misreading potential suitors, situations, and missing out on aspects of life? I would say that you need to resolve your CPTSD. You're going to have to resolve your emotional flashbacks, and you're going to have to develop your emotional literacy such that you can process the unprocessed emotions that are stopping you from using and trusting your intuition. So if we become emotionally phobic, we become fearful of our own feelings, and we stop feeling our feelings and we stop learning how to process our feelings, then to a degree our cognitive functioning actually becomes affected, especially in the area of intuition and emotional intelligence. Our capacity to read a person's intentions becomes very, very damaged. So resolve the emotional flashbacks, develop your emotional literacy, grieve properly for what you have lost, and that problem should be recovered. JT says, "It's close to 11 for you. Are almost midnight again, question mark." Yes, it is 11:15 for me. GL says, "How are you, Richard? You've been on social media a great deal lately and seem progressively rather emotionally flat. Showing my fawn CPTSD response. Maybe it's the fasting." Oh, somebody else just asked me if I was on pills. I don't feel emotionally flat, and I don't feel pilled up. So I don't know. How am I? I'm good. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Sloth. "I have a narcissist, maybe borderline, in a class I teach. She is affecting the other students. How do I manage her behavior so she does not affect the group?" It's going to be tough because her whole game is about affecting other people's behavior and affecting other people's emotions. And so the most important thing in that scenario would be to manage your own state first and foremost, and to do your best to not get sucked into the chaos-inducing whirlpool that she wants. She wants you to feel negative emotions. She wants you to feel negative and unpleasant. Joe Fisher says, Richard is relaxing. I might be too relaxed. Maybe that's why people are saying I sound flat. This is the way I've been doing it on Instagram. I just pull the phone out and start talking. And maybe on YouTube, generally I've been a bit more, I make like a huge, like a much, much huger effort to be charismatic. And now I'm just like talking. maybe it's the drop down from the way I would normally talk. But this is this is the way I talk, probably more normally if you met me in real life. Magda says, I see lots of trolls here. That's why I don't really like posting on YouTube as much. YouTube is the worst for trolls. Facebook, second worst. Instagram, no trolls. So what happens? I post a lot on Instagram. Can you lead a cheer and wake us all up? Says D. No. I cannot. Yeah, back to the lady with the borderline in her class. You know, it's your class, so it's the boundary there would need to be in managing your own state and conveying to everybody in the classroom the boundaries of the behavior that you will and won't accept within that classroom context. Obviously, discipline nowadays in a classroom is quite hard to assert because there are no sanctions anymore. You know, nobody's going to back you up if you enforce a sanction on somebody. Nobody's going to back you up with it. There really isn't any kind of social shame that would back that. Esther says, hi Richard, you look refreshed and handsome as usual. Esther, you silver-tongued cavalier, you. Well, I doubt I'm refreshed. It's pretty late at night. I'm pretty knackered, but yeah. Brandy Bailey says, how to get support. What are you looking for support with, Brandy? Would be the question. Sarah says, love your videos on CPTSD and zombie witch trance induction. Helped me make another breakthrough. You're the best. Lots of love. Thank you very much, Sarah. I'm glad that those videos helped you. Do you think there is a link between CPTSD and ADHD? Asks Blue James. Pretty sure that's covered in the Pete Walker book. I don't specialize in ADHD. There is a hyperactivity that can be found in the flight response, which is usually a flight from uncomfortable emotions. So becoming very, very hyperactive and very, very ADHD and doing 1,000 things at once could be a way of running away from pain and from uncomfortable emotions. CK says, what is a troll? A troll is somebody who, it's internet slang for somebody who deliberately just posts reaction-seeking nonsense for the purpose of derailing a conversation or a thread. Belle of Amherst says, I'm really in a very bad place with a narcissist for 3 years, not intimate, but we're together. That's interesting. You're not intimate, but you're together. Can't leave D/D $. Dude, like you're at peak slang here. D/T $/ very capital letters, tired of abuse and depressed. Panic in capital letters, debilitating. Advice ? I mean, you couldn't even be asked to write a question properly. Why should I be asked to give you advice? Here's my advice. $/ take care of self / emolit / recovery $ smiley face with tears running down. How'd you like that? I don't know what your situation is. If you want me to ask a question, write it in simple sentences and end it with a question mark. JT says, here's your cheer. Rah, rah, ree, kick him in the knee. Rah, rah, ras, kick him in the other knee. Then go no contact. and make sure you subscribe. It's good, JT. I liked it. Thank you. LCM says, lol, any personal coaching soon? Very unlikely that I'll be doing any one-to-one coaching anytime in the near future. Patricia Enriquez says, hi, Richard. I've been tracking your vids for a while. What would be the key difference between CPTSD and borderline? Uh, I'm sorry. I, I was diagnosed with BPD traits, but I think it's CPTSD. Gracias. I've covered this a few times before, and maybe I should just do a video that's just called what I think the differences are between BPD and CPTSD. The Cliff Notes version is if you're not entitled and you're not exploitative. I'm sorry, but the question under yours is question, I'm stupid, do you shave your balls? Oh, okay. This is a different experience to Instagram Live. I'm stupid. Do you shave your balls? I like that. That's good. Oh dear. Um, so if you're not exploitative and you're not entitled and you're not plotting to hurt somebody, then saying that you're BPD, in my humble opinion, is not a very useful diagnosis. But there are many clinicians and mental health professionals who would disagree with me. There are many who agree with me that say borderline personality disorder should be left in the cluster B and that we need a term for people who are so emotionally dysregulated that it does affect their interpersonal communication through CPTSD. The tricky thing with just calling it CPTSD is, of course, that borderline is a manifestation of trauma. Um, it is, the end result of CPTSD, of a fight, fawn response to CPTSD. Um, so your diagnosis would be unhelpful, or I mean, it can still be helpful though. I've got to be so careful what I say. So imagine you're not exploitative, you're not predatory, and you're not entitled, but you're given the diagnosis of BPD. But actually, really, all you have is CPTSD. You have childhood trauma, and your interpersonal relationships are difficult, and you experience a lot of emotional dysregulation. And the end result of your diagnosis, wrong as it is that they give you a certain type of therapy, like, for example, dialectical behavioral therapy by Marsha Linehan. And it teaches you to be more mindful. It teaches you to radically accept where you're up to in your life, and all of your emotions and everything that you've experienced up until now, and to just accept it for what it is for the moment, and to delineate and create a boundary between your thoughts and your feelings. So then you would have been treated for BPD, even though it was wrong, and you still would have got some benefit for the CPTSD symptoms that you experienced. So, you know, the short version is, if you're not entitled and you're not exploitative, I don't think BPD is a great diagnosis. There is, on the Spartan Life Coach Facebook page, if you go through the photos, there is, from several years ago, a diagram that was drawn by a lady, and I tried to contact her on her blog, and I never got an answer from her to get permission to use it. And she's not a mental health professional. She just was somebody who was the victim of a violent assault, and she was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and she was appalled because she went and read up online, and she's like, ooh, that's not me, I'm not like that. And so she went through, she's an intelligent person, and she went through and she was like, how do they diagnose this? And she found out that it's a series of equally weighted traits that you check off the checklist, because that's how daft and naive psychology is today, because it's a discipline very much in its infancy. And then she found out about CPTSD. So what she did was she helpfully drew a diagram to where CPTSD, it's like a Venn diagram, is in one circle and BPD is in another circle, and then she points out where they cross over and basically informs why sometimes people with CPTSD get the BPD diagnosis. I should maybe get that done into like a fancy infographic. Maybe pay somebody to do that. That would probably be useful. And then people can use that instead. And I can just go, here's your answer every time people ask that question. Tanya Fontaine says, I'm confused, question mark. Isn't there different types of BPD? Type A, type B, etc. I have been diagnosed with type B and I'm trying to relate my diagnoses with PTSD. Unfortunately, Tanya, there isn't a unified theory of borderline personality disorder. There isn't a unified theory of psychology. So there are psychologists, and at one time, what I would have said is there's such a thing as a benign borderline. And then I met some people whose opinions I respect, who understood it better than me. And whilst they didn't quite tell me off, they pointed out, the two of them, that cluster B personality disorder denotes a predatory and exploitative mindset. And when you pull that out, it's not really cluster B anymore. Now, back it up a second, guys. Remember, I'm working from the DSM, which is a very imperfect source, a very, you could argue, is a very corrupted source, and it's written by the American Psychiatric Association. So you could, right off the bat, you could go, well, I'm not going to listen to this guy. He's working from the fucking DSM definition. The reason why I stick to the DSM definition of the cluster B personality disorders, even though I know that the source is flawed, is that their model of the cluster B personality disorders describes it pretty well for my understanding and for my purposes. So, as to a type B borderline or a type A borderline, I wouldn't recognize it. And I would rather say, look, we need another diagnosis for people who are emotionally dysregulated. They have interpersonal and intrapersonal turbulence as a result of trauma, and it should be called something else. Because what happens and what gets confusing is when you have people with neurotically high levels of empathy and a very, very pronounced fawning and enabling response, is as nice and empathic as they can become very bitter and resentful over time and can become extremely manipulative and then extremely vengeful. And then you go, well, what is this? You're supposed to be this nice, empathic, fawning enabler. And then 5 years down the line, when you're all pissed off, and I've been this person as well, you become vengeful, you become punishing, you become bitter. Now, that's my linguistic construct for it. If you look at, there's the Australian guy on YouTube, Vital Mind Psychology. He's got a YouTube or a series of YouTube videos about, and he calls it the empath. I don't like to use the word empath anymore, but he uses it. And he calls it, there's one called the empath in trouble. I think there's a couple called the empath in trouble, where he goes even deeper into that. The fawning codependent enabler becomes quite malignant and quite nasty. Of course they do, because they're still human beings. And they get Abdul Sad, is it? Is that his name? Abdul Sad, Vital Mind Psychology. Very, very good videos. Excellent videos on empaths. Getting really nasty, talking about how they can get quite nasty. And then you would look and you would go, oh, so you were empathic today and super kind and over giving. You were giving people things they didn't ask for. And then the next day, you're punishing them for taking the things they didn't ask for and not being thankful enough. Well, that's classic push pull, which is the classic push pull of borderline personality disorder. Okay, I just need to. There's a troll I need to block here. Okay, let's do that. Any messages about your balls or anything nonsensey, I'm gonna delete you. Please read this. Says Becky. Should I stop trying to date if I'm uninterested in normal? I just don't seem to click with anyone who isn't crazy. I've avoided them, but the normal ones, ... I don't know. What I recommend for you, Becky, is that yes, you stop dating and that you take a time out and you have like a little philosophical enema, and a philosophical rinse, and you start again and you wipe the slate clean and you ask yourself the question, what is the purpose of my life? What do I choose my life to be about? And what is love to me? And you write it down like you're writing an essay. You write down all the things you want love to be and all the things you do not want love to be. And then you take a breath, go for a walk, leave it a week, come back, do the exercise again. What is the purpose of life? What do I want my life to be about? And what is love? And you write it all down again. And then, having done that, take another breath. And when you are ready, try dating again. Tell me how it goes. Sarah Nova says, warm and fuzzy like a puppy, good genes, lol. Okay. ZXS asks, your thoughts on the emotional effect on children with so many parents putting their young children on YouTube and other public forums? Future narcissist in the making, perhaps. I'm not for it, you know. I'm not for people putting their kids on social media at all. Not at all. For a lot of reasons. But I think it's a mistake. You know, you see your kid doing something cute and you want to keep a video of it, you show that to your family. You don't put that in the public. I've seen videos of kids who've been trained to do and say things like adults. There was one of a little girl about 5 years old. I saw this, it's a long time ago now. It went viral on Facebook talking about how men should respect women. And they were the words of a 30-year-old mother coming out of a 4-year-old's mouth. And people on social media were lauding her for her wisdom. And I'm like, she's just the mouthpiece for her mum. She's 4 years old and she's all sassy. And she's like, I'm not going to let no man do this and I'm not going to let no man do that. And everybody's going, that's right, girl. You go, girl. You go, girl. Fucking nothing. You go and play is what you go and fucking do. And send the mum round to my house and I'll have a little half hour, sit down with her and tell her why she shouldn't be vicariously drawing narcissistic supply from her child like that. That's a child, it's not a puppet. So no, I'm not for it at all. Will it create a generation of narcissists? It'll create a generation of people who value themselves in the wrong way. I mean, that's already there. You look at young millennials or whatever person who's after millennials is called now, and they're so clearly damaged by social media, and their whole mindset and their whole way of looking at the world and relating to other people is partly constructed on and built around how it will draw emotional reactions from others. So people can be, you know, I look at some 21, 22-year olds, I chat to them, and in some ways nothing has changed. And then in other ways, I'm like, oh God, you know, it really feels like they're under a tremendous amount of pressure. And yeah, I don't know whether it will create a future generation of narcissists, but it might create a future generation of people who are excessively concerned with things that just don't fucking matter, like likes, like social media feedback. Um, and one of the worrying things for me that gets me called a fuddy duddy is this tendency for people to value their opinions over facts and say, you know, listening to Ricky Gervais talk about this yesterday at the Oxford University. It used to be that people would say, my opinion is just as valuable as your opinion, which is valid. And then now it's become, my opinion is more valid than your facts. Well, at that point, we have to draw a boundary and go, hang on, we're disappearing into the dark abyss of total fucking gibberish now. You know, that's like anti-intellectualism. And historically, when a culture hits a point where it is advocating, worshipping, and rewarding anti-intellectualism, what comes next is usually not very good. Um, People don't like it nowadays, unfortunately. It's not popular. Objective thinking, critical thinking, sticking to the facts, you know, thinking before you talk, not just having emotional knee jerk reactions and opinions to everything, doesn't seem to be a la mode. It's not in fashion at the moment. That's a real shame. It's very, very dangerous. It's a much more dangerous precedent than people realize. Sure, they all think it's a bit of a laugh and it's all a bit of fun, and I just get to spout my opinion and chat to my mates, and it doesn't really matter. Don't be such a fuddy duddy. And I'm like, it does matter. It does matter. You're tearing at the very fabric of reality, and the consequences can be quite dire, quite dire. I didn't like history in school, but I started reading about it after school, and yeah, historically speaking, that is a dangerous precedent to be set. Oh, sounds like ACOA doctrine, says Cobalt Nebula. Megan says social media has ruined everything, especially Reddit and Instagram. Black Mirror episode 3.1 nosedive, sobering view of social media. Now that's interesting because I thought I'd seen all the Black Mirrors, but I don't recognize the name of that nosedive. I really like Charlie Brooker. I really does everything that he's ever done. There's nothing he's ever done that I don't like. He's the mind behind Black Mirror. And if anybody gets a chance and you like Black Mirror, try watching Charlie Brooker's Screen Wipes. Screen Wipe, it's called, and it's a review of what goes on British television. And it's funny, and there are replays of it on YouTube, but it's also really insightful as well. Okay. Moray says, I need your lips on my nostril, you masculine sexual beast. Hide user on this channel. You got blocked. But it was funny. Was that the Star Trek like one? I don't know if that was the Star Trek one. I don't think so. Is that season? I thought that was season 4. The Star Trek one was really spooky. I liked it a lot. Lou Frando says, now that I'm away from the narcissist, I'm being flooded with memories I'd forgotten, and their accompanying emotions from my 19 years with him and childhood also. Is this a normal part of the process? Yes. And it's got nothing to do with narcissism. It's just what happens when we are pair bonded to somebody and we have left them, and then you are to be heartbroken and in pain. And this is normal and this is natural, and it will continue for as long as it takes. It's part of the grieving process. And yes, memories will come up of you and him together. Even if he wasn't a very nice person, you'll still remember the times that you shared together. Those memories coming up, that's your unconscious processing them and letting them go. So you should just let that happen. Permit it to happen. Let yourself grieve. Be emotionally literate and permit the feelings of sadness and grief to occur. ZXS says, I'm also witnessing adapted histrionic behavior on YouTube. People seem to be using a lot of screaming and odd facial expressions while saying the most mundane things. Now that's the norm. Yeah, I think a few years ago, people realized, the smart ones realized, that basically YouTube is a spectacle. Well, the internet is a spectacle, really. It's not a place for... It's not YouTube. You won't be massively rewarded on YouTube for speaking gently about topics of the mind. You will be rewarded greatly for singing funny songs about ball bags, making a funny face, riding down the road backwards on a skateboard in a thong. So it's a place for spectacle. So even people... I remember Alex Jones, he must have got a PR agent in, and they'd said to him, look, YouTube is a spectacle, you need to do things that are crazier. And it was about 4 or 5 years, about 2013, 2014, there was a noticeable shift where he started wearing silly masks, silly hats, and would permit himself to be filmed going into a rant that would be so intense that he would be salivating. And obviously he was mocked for it, but and he looked completely absurd, and you'd think, well, surely he would lose his credibility. But his subscriber numbers jumped up exponentially in accordance with that spectacle. So yeah, you will see very, very reaction-seeking behavior on YouTube, because that's what is rewarded. The context rewards that behavior. Maurice, please go away. It's a bit creepy, says Nikki. What is Maurice doing? Maurice, let me find you. Maurice says, the only spectacle I see on YouTube is you with hearts in the eyes and a really creepy profile picture. Ah, YouTube, you never fail to disappoint. Maurice is gone. Dunning-Kruger says, YouTube is a beacon for truth and fair debate. I will permit you. Yes. Charisse says, good evening. This is my first live with you. I've learned so much from watching your videos. Thank you. Thank you, Charisse. It's good of you to say that. I appreciate that. Okay. Looking for a question. Other people have mentioned memories here. Yeah, you've got to let the memories flow and come through. That's going to happen. You're going to dream about the person. You're going to have memories of them. You know, it sounds cheesy and corny, but it is true that what you resist persists. So just permit them to come. Just be brave and be strong and be confident. Have confidence in your ability to handle it, and just let it happen. Let the feelings come, let the thoughts come, and then let them go. Practice being the detached observer of your own thoughts. You don't need to be fully associated with all your thoughts and go, ooh, this thought, it's me. Oh, this thought, it's me. This thought is me. Some of it is just bubbles. And sometimes, you know, dreams are just dreams, and there's nothing particularly, you know, deep and meaningful about them. Lizzie says, I need to wash the dye off my hair. Please, can you answer my question before my hair goes green, lol? What's your question? Let me look for it, Lizzie, so you can wash your hair. I can't see your question, mate. Okay, JT says, for the 500th time, can you please tell me which of your programs would be best for CPTSD? Yeah, the free ebook called How to Stop Emotional Flashbacks. If you go to my Instagram, which is Instagram, or just look Richard Grannon, just go into Instagram and search Richard Grannon. In the profile, there's a link in the bio to a free ebook called How to Stop Emotional Flashbacks, and that's the best program I have for quickly reducing CPTSD flashbacks. When you've done that and you've been using it for a week, if you still want more help, there is a one on the website that's called Remove the Narcissistic Malware that goes deeper into dealing with narcissistic abuse. It's like an 8-hour lecture that was filmed in London that goes deep. If you're an information junkie, I think pretty sure it's like 7 or 8 hours of video of me doing this weekend long seminar. Goes deep into CPTSD and the flight response and the fawn response and all of that if you want more. But the free ebook should be enough. It has like a 40-minute video in it. It has audio exercises in it. And if you start using it, that will reduce the CPTSD flashbacks. D. Finley says, for the 500th time, can I call you Dickie? You can call me Dick or Dickie. Doesn't offend me in the slightest. I was named after my great grandfather who fought in World War II, Grandpa Dick, and he had one arm because he was in the 1st Parachute Regiment when the Parachute Regiment was first created in Britain, and he was airdropped on a glider behind enemy lines and had his arm blown off in a slit trench. He was hard as fuck. You can call me Dickie all day long. Serenity Track says, but we can control the YouTube corporate narrative by focusing on and watching uplifting content. Yeah, you can do, and I'm sure there is. I mean, there's is it Robert Sarapolsky or something? There's a bunch of videos that get millions of views that are just like it's too much for me. on neurobiology and psychiatry, and there's loads of great YouTube is a fantastic medium. If I don't have YouTube, I wouldn't have been able to. I've been working full time online since 2005, largely because of YouTube. So it's a platform that I love, but it has changed in that time. And the way YouTube operates has changed, and the way people use YouTube has changed. But it's a fantastic medium. The fact that I can do this is free. It's free for me to do this. I didn't pay anybody. This is cutting edge technology, and it's free for you guys to enjoy it. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. The K. Anyone else see my comments? I hope he didn't block me or something. I'm so sorry in capital letters. You've not been blocked. Uh, where's the girl gone whose hair was supposed to go green? Okay, anybody who found her question, copy and paste it for me, please. Say green hair girl or dye hair girl. This is her question. Sheila says, for the 500th time, do you plan to visit Ireland, Richard? I would like to come back to Ireland. Um, I was living there last year. I love Ireland. I would do a seminar either in Dublin or in Galway in the West. Um, but I will, of course, would let you all know, and the best way to keep up with that would be on SpartanLifeCoach.com. Join the mailing list on my homepage. Miranda says, for the 500th time, what everybody's using up for the 500th time now. Are Klingons NPDs? Klingons, well, I think, like, strictly speaking, for somebody to be personality disordered, we're getting into the sociology and the philosophy of psychiatric diagnoses here. You've kind of got to be outside of society because you've got to be considered mentally ill. Well, for them being, I'm not really a big Trekkie fan, but Klingons I think are like real warrior types, and it's all about the warrior culture. So no, they wouldn't be classed as NPDs. Klingons would be classed in their own culture as just a good Klingon. Like if everybody, I'm not saying they're all murderous psychopaths. I don't know enough about Trek mythology, but like if they're all quite bloodthirsty, quite violent warriors with a view to invade and take over, then no, they're not NPDs because it's a culture bound syndrome, isn't it? So, and it only works if it's in reflection to everybody else. Like if one day we all become NPD, then NPD ceases to exist. It doesn't mean anything. That's just what a person looks like. That's just normal. Uh, Pisces S, jump into my bed. What the fuck? Okay. Is tired an emotion regarding emotional literacy? No, Sarah. Tired is not an emotion. Tired is a physical feeling. The K. How do I deal with a possibly hostile narc who could be really outwardly vicious and confrontational if I end up running into them while I'm out and about? You should avoid them. NPD survivor. Mr. Grannon, have you looked at Baked Alaska and Andy Warski? No. He is for sure an abusive. Ooh. Stop naming people and saying that they're narcissists on here, please, guys. Don't do that again. I'm going to have to block you if you do that. You're talking about people I don't know, and that is, it's slander. So don't use my YouTube comments to slander people I don't even fucking know because you've got beef with them. Beef in the stew. Kendra says, Richie, thank you for the e-literacy course, the emotional literacy course. It's helped heal repeated trauma. That's good to hear. It's haunted me for decades. I've been using it for almost 6 months. Excellent. I'm really glad to hear that. It's a powerful course. I highly recommend it. Tiffany Black says 700 times. Goodness. Kerry says, Maurice would have answered one of my questions. Well, Maurice is gone now. How is your heart since last year's sadness? My heart since last year's sadness has has grown. It has grown, and it has changed. It has become a different entity, but it's grown. Thank you for asking. I'm grateful for last year's sadness. Megan says, hashtag justice for Maurice. Make Maurice great again. Can you see my comments from Atlanta, Georgia, USA? Because I need help. All comments from Atlanta, Georgia are completely blocked. I can't see any of them. Yes, I can see your comments, but there's a lot of people commenting, so I might have missed them before. You can try and copy and paste your earlier question if you want to, and I'll try and look at it. I've just got to block trolls, man. Okay. Miss Ravioli, if you copy and paste your earlier question, I'll try and answer it for you if I see it. JC says, I'm glad you're still live. I will rewatch from the beginning. Very cool. Big love to you, Richard. Sorry about the trolls. Claire, there's very, very few. It's not that bad. Richard, do you think ESP is real? I have forgotten what ESP is. Oh no, hang on. Extrasensory perception. Is it real? I think it's probably a phenomenon that does occur sometimes under a special set of circumstances. Yes, probably. NPD survivor says, I thought this was a place to ask for help. Guess not. Sorry. No, NPD survivor. What you did was you made statements that you masked as questions about people and named them in order to slander them. And you were not asking for help. Cheeky, cheeky little boy. Right, let me answer one more question and then I will disappear. Okay, KT says, Sarah is asking how to deal with sexual harassment at work. Unfortunately, guys, I can't offer legal advice, and the way that I would seek to do that would be through legal means. It is illegal to sexually harass people at work. So you're asking me, how do I deal with somebody preying on me in a criminal way in an environment? It doesn't matter whether it's at work or whether the context is sexual. It is totally illegal in pretty much every civilized country in the world to sexually harass somebody. So that is a thing that needs to be dealt with by legal means. Okay. Nikki Lee says, why has that changed at work? Question mark. Everyone wants to sleep with each other now. Lol. I think they always did. BZ says, narcissistic men? Question mark. Mark Dahl says, hey Winston. No, you're Winston. I'm the other one whose name I can't remember right now. O'Brien. I'm O'Brien. You're Winston. Guess who? Picking up for a question asked the other night. Personality disorder and CPTSD. In your opinion, are they ever mistaken for each other? Well, the thing that you need to remember, mate, is that all personality disorders, in my humble opinion, are rooted in CPTSD. Not everybody agrees with that. Some people think it's genetic. But all personality disorders, in my view, are rooted in trauma. So it's all CPTSD. In my view, ever since I read the Pete Walker book years ago, what blew me away and why I've been like, oh, read it, read it, read it, read it, read it for years, and encouraging people all the time to read it, and why I say it's the best book on psychology ever written, is because Pete Walker describes, in my view, the cause of 95% of all mental health issues and the solution to all mental health issues. So yeah, a personality disorder is CPTSD. So if you're asking me if somebody's got trauma and they're just emotionally dysregulated, but they don't really have a personality disorder, could they accidentally be diagnosed as having one? Yes, because our means for testing for personality disorders are quite crude, And if anybody wants to test that for themselves, just go online and look up a narcissistic personality disorder test or psychopath personality disorder test. Pick one at random, choose to register positive for narcissistic personality disorder or for antisocial personality disorder. Take the test and you will register positive for it. Now, you're not a psychologist, you're not a psychiatrist, but you just cheated a test with no warm up, with no instruction on how to do it, other than that some guy on YouTube said, just decide before you take the test that you want it. You're going to pretend that you have narcissism. So, does that mean that you could pretend you don't have narcissism or that you're not psychopath? Yeah. So it's very, very what bothers me and what frightens me when people come to me and they go, I've been diagnosed as borderline and you say this about borderlines is not true. I'm like, why the fuck are you so confident you have borderline personality disorder? Just because somebody said you did. These people are not, it's not like you have a torn ACL or you have shingles or like it, it's it's bordering on an informed opinion, because you need to come from a certain school of thought in order to make these diagnoses. Okay. Ba, 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 ba. Okay. Pete Walker's books were awesome. They changed my life. Hi, Vel. Yeah, no, they are really, really good. They're really, really good, mate. It's probably, I think one of the problems with it though is that some of the material is too triggering. So I've been like, maybe I should do like a read along or like a simplified version that I know won't trigger people so they can actually read it. Bill says, I was diagnosed with anancastic personality disorder. Goodness. Nikki Lee says, many people shame me and say CPTSD isn't a real thing. I wouldn't discuss it with most people, mate. That's a mistake right there. Okay. There was a lady before who said she'd asked a question. There was two and that I'd missed them. So I'm codependently going through and looking, but I cannot see that you have repeated these things. So I am, okay, not very many questions here at all. Oh, ZXS says, Richard, this is a bit personal, but do you still suffer from childhood trauma ever, or have you completely overcome it? Well, oh, I'll come back to that, mate. One of the ladies who asked a question and then I didn't say it has come back. Nobody said anything about the girl with the hair dye. Okay, Miss Ravioli from Atlanta, Georgia says, I have concerns that my 4 and 5-year-old girls are being abused, including sexual. You got to go to the police with that kind of thing, mate. I like it is not something that I can answer here. And you know, I even if I give you advice that sounds like anything other than go to the police now, I could get in trouble for that. Like, you can't throw something like that on my toes. You've got to go straight to the police right away, right now. Do not delay and let them know what your concerns are, exactly what your concerns are. But you can't come to me on a YouTube live video and say, this is what's happening to my children. I think they're being sexually abused. There's that information. Dot any advice question mark. Go to the police straight away. There is nobody. Anybody advise you to do anything different is, at the very least, immoral and possibly breaking the law. Miss Ravioli says the police are not informed about Cluster B. Call me, text me. There's absolutely no way on this earth that I'm going to call you or text you, and it doesn't matter that the police are not informed about cluster B. They are informed about childhood sexual abuse, and that is illegal. And if you tell them, they will deal with it. They don't. The police don't need to know anything about the cluster B. They don't need to They don't need a degree in psychiatry to know that if somebody is beating the fuck out of somebody else, that a crime is being committed and it must be stopped. They don't need to know why it's being committed and the psychological root of that commitment. They just come down there, taser them, throw the cuffs on them, and throw them back of the van. Las Mindra. Las Miranda says, will you call me or text me? No, I won't call or text anyone. Vil says, the police are probably completely aware of assholes being in this world. Yes, they are. I regularly sit with police and have a couple of drinks with them, and they're aware of it. They ask me about it. They're interested, but it doesn't make any difference. Like, they know, they're aware, somewhat aware, that some people are pathologically predisposed to committing criminal acts and to being predators. Nocatano says, Jesus Christ, people. Yeah, YouTube Live. I had to open Pandora's box. I'm actually going to stop in a minute and I'm going to go to Instagram Live, which is Pipe and Slippers. I got my same 75 people watching. We have a little chat, know everybody's names, everybody knows each other, everybody's super polite. It's all good. It's all good. I'm sorry if you deleted your ID, Megan. That's where I'm going right now. Pipe and Slippers time, baby. I'm gonna chat to my little Instagram fam where it's all cozy there. Mike says if Maurice were here, she would be talking about her Pandora's box. Oh God. It's a different vibe on YouTube, I'm telling you. I am telling you. New question, Richard, what's in your pipe? I'm just reading this for the lols now. Okay. Wow. No trolls on IG, says Dunning-Kruger. On my Instagram lives, I've done 8 or 9 hours of Instagram lives, and I've had to block one person, and I've caught maybe one other person trolling, and I just didn't block them. They just went away. So Lasmindra says, okay, this is the last question, I guess. Studio one trolled. I don't know, because I didn't read the live chat. I didn't actually read. Richard was filtering it, and I didn't go back and read it. But he didn't mention me being trolled, actually. Yes. So I don't know whether that's true or not. Yeah, I like video games. I don't really play that much at the moment. The last time I played video games was when I last lived like in a house properly, and I had a PS4. I played Wolfenstein and Call of Duty Zombies. Tina Edwards says, boring. That's just hurtful. That's just so hurtful. Boring. Well, yeah, whatever. Okay. Anna says, don't tell them about Instagram. They will all come over and ruin it. They won't. They won't. This is a different crew. They definitely won't. Okay, guys. I'm gonna wrap that here. Dunning-Kruger says, I troll in hope someone gets what my name means. After all, I know it all. I think a lot of people here would know what Dunning-Kruger is all about, mate. There's a lot of people here who are psychology graduates, or at least have read as much as a psychology graduate would read. So they know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is. Okay. What's your Insta username? It's Richard Grannon, surprisingly enough. Just a Rose says, some of us are here for the help, not the laughs. Thank you so much to those who listened and answered. All right. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. Again, guys, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care.